Democrats continuing to pound on House Intelligence Chairman Devin Nunes, accusing him of being a stooge of the Trump administration for revealing documents that suggest the Obama administration spied on Trump and his associates. White House Press Secretary Sean Spicer blasted the press for vilifying Nunes while ignoring the substance of that story. Here's part of it.
You seem to be really focused on who showed up where and what door they went in and how it happened. To answer your question, yes, it's appropriate for a member of Congress to contact someone who has contacted him according to some of these reports. I don't know the answer to that, but if you're asking me, is it appropriate for a member of Congress to come over here? As Chairman Nunes has said himself, he wasn't hiding or roaming. He was asked to come over here by an individual. He came over, which happens daily. He was asked to go somewhere. He went there. He is cleared. And nothing that is inappropriate, and exactly the opposite. What he did, what he saw, and who he met with was 100% proper.
Well, so the question is, why is the press focused on what Nunes did and not what he apparently revealed? Well, Congressman Sean Patrick Maloney is a Democrat. He represents New York, and he joins us tonight. Congressman, thanks for coming on.
My pleasure.
So here's what I think the chairman of the Intel Committee is telling us. I want to put it on the screen for our viewers who haven't been following this. First, he says there are dozens of documents gathered by intelligence agencies run by the Obama administration with information about Trump officials. Second, the information these documents contain was not related to Russia or the investigation about Russia. Third, while many of these reports did mask the identities, redact the identities of the people in them, they were written in ways that made it clear who was being talked about, including Trump officials. In at least one instance, fourth, a Trump official other than Mr. Flynn, General Flynn, was outright identified. And these documents circulated at the highest levels of government. So to sum up, it looks like pretty clear, at least from what the chairman of the Intel Committee is telling us, the Obama administration spied on the Trump transition and campaign. Why is that not a big deal?
Well, I'd be very careful about throwing around that accusation. There's no evidence of that, and if there is, we should have it out in the open for all to see. But it shouldn't get in the way of the very serious investigation of what the Russians were doing in our election.
No, so I'm sorry, I'm not going to let you move right on to Russia before answering the question, which is, the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee said he saw this week documents collected by the Obama administration's intelligence agencies that pertain to Donald Trump and his associates. That is a big deal, is it not? Are you saying that he's lying about that those documents don't exist? How do you respond to that?
I think it's very difficult to know what Chairman Nunes is saying, and you see in the criticism of senior Republicans, most pointedly from the Senate Intelligence Committee, that's doing a good bipartisan job, the fact that most people don't really take the chairman very seriously right now. And the problem is not that he's being a partisan. The question is whether he's competent and whether he's impartial. And to get dragged down to the White House and to say so many contradictory things, it really doesn't really help his credibility. Look, I was on the White House senior staff.
But he said specific things. No, I know you've been in and around government a while, but he said things that are not just of concern to Republicans, but of concern to anyone who lives in this country.
Tucker, let me be clear. If there is evidence that the Obama administration spied on the Trump campaign, let's have it. But let's also do a full investigation of what happened with the Russian investigation.
We already have
in the
evidence, don't we? And I don't think they're not mutually exclusive. Well,
no, there is no evidence of that.
Yes, actually there is.
No.
And General Flynn, whatever one thinks of him or his suitability to be national security advisor, we know that a conversation he had with a Russian official was recorded and then leaked illegally. He was destroyed by it.
Well,
so
I'm glad
that's a crime.
I'm very glad you mentioned that. We do know that there was an investigation going on. The FBI director has told us they're investigating collusion between the Trump campaign and the Russians. And we do know that Michael Flynn was talking to the senior Russian spy in the U.S. and lied about it. That's why President Trump fired him. That's why he's under threat of criminal prosecution and seeking immunity. That's very, very different from someone spying on the campaign. That's called an investigation of Russian influence.
Right. Okay. Thanks for clarifying. So I just want to make totally clear that I understand what you're saying. You're saying it's okay for an intelligence agency to listen to an American citizen, transcribe the conversation, which is classified, and then leak it to the press.
No, I didn't say that.
That's a felony. But so what are you saying?
No, I didn't say that.
Are you going to take a breath to at least acknowledge that's a crime and wrong, or no?
Well, you don't know that a crime has been committed, except possibly by Michael Flynn. No, let me finish. The fact is that there are legal ways for the FBI, in the course of a counterintelligence operation and investigation, to lawfully examine the communications of Americans with foreign nationals like Ambassador Kislyak. That's not spying, Tucker. That's called enforcing the law and protecting us from people who are betraying the country.
As you know, we've been through this before. You're willfully ignoring what I'm asking you, which is it okay to make that information public? And you know as well as I do that it's not. It's a crime.
No, it's not. No,
so
that's wrong.
Why just elide over that rather than just stop and say the obvious thing?
I didn't elide it. I just agreed with you.
Okay.
But it doesn't make what General Flynn was doing right. That's why Trump fired him. That's why he's facing criminal prosecution. You should care about that, too.
There are many things that General Flynn did, taking money from foreign governments, I think are not only wrong but appalling and make him unsuitable for that job. So
well, I was glad to hear you come around to that, because until recently he was the National Security Advisor.
Look, here's the point. You have intelligence agencies that are operating independent from the elected officials whose job it is to oversee them. They are refusing to turn over information to the intel committees, which, again, provide oversight over them. And you are saying nothing because it suits your partisan ends. And I'm really saying, as a member of Congress, shouldn't you be raising alarm about this?
No. You careful. I wouldn't go, just maligning our intelligence professionals. They're good people who are patriotic and protect our country.
Well, you should be
careful, and if they're asked for something, they'll turn it over. Someone leaking classified information is wrong. I agreed with you on that. Okay. I still agree with you on that.
You're not listening to members of your own party. Because, as you know, Adam Schiff, who's the ranking Democrat on the Intelligence Committee, has complained publicly that he cannot get information pertaining to the Russia investigation from the FBI. Nunes has said the same thing. You've seen Harry Reid say the same thing about the CIA. In case after case, members of Congress whose job it is to oversee these agencies can't get the relevant information.
Well,
and that's, I guess, okay with you because you're mad at Trump, but it's a problem long term, is it not?
No, of course it's not okay with me. And in fact, the FBI director did testify in front of Adam Schiff's committee in response to that request, and the agencies have been highly responsive both to the Senate and the House committee, and they should continue to be so. And anyone in those agencies leaking something that's classified as breaking the law. Now, having said that, let's get into why Michael Flynn is facing criminal prosecution and what the heck was going on between the Trump campaign and the Russians, because the FBI is investigating collusion, and it'd be great if you took that seriously, too.
Okay. I do take it seriously, and in fact, I have asked in a very specific way the ranking Democrat on the House Intel Committee to explain the question, and that is the hacking of John Podesta's Gmail account and the Democratic National Committee. And he said to me, and everyone else says, and I've heard you say many times, that was done by the Russian government, by the Putin regime. And I asked him very specifically to tell me how he knows that, and here's what he said. Watch this. Can you look right into the camera and say, I know for a fact the government of Vladimir Putin was behind the hacks of John Podesta's email?
Absolutely. The government of Vladimir Putin was behind the hacks of our institution and the dumping of information.
Of John Podesta's email.
Not only in the United States, but also in Europe.
Okay, you're not, you know what, you're dodging.
And Tucker,
no, look and say, I know they did. John Podesta's email, they hacked
and
those.
I think that Ronald Reagan will be rolling over his grave at your carrying water for the Kremlin.
I'm not carrying water for the Kremlin. You're a sitting member of Congress on the Intel Committee, and you can't say they hacked.
You're going to have to move your show to RT Russian television, because
you know what?
This is perfect.
Just so beneath your office because it's so dumb and you're being duplicitous. I'm asking you, did they hack Podesta's emails? And you can't say it.
Insults like that, Tucker.
You just said I was carrying. You said I was carrying water for Putin. That's pretty hilarious.
You know, when you essentially are an apologist for the Kremlin, that's what you're doing.
I'm going to one last time, Congressman. Look into the camera and say they hacked John Podesta's emails. We know for a fact that Putin's government did that. You can't, and you know you can't, and you're hiding
Tucker,
behind weasel words. It's a really simple question, Congressman.
Right.
Do you have evidence that Putin's government hacked John Podesta's emails? That's the core question. And instead of answering it, he called me a water carrier for the Kremlin and a tool of Vladimir Putin. Well, he could not answer that question. I'm hardly a water carrier for Putin. That's insane. It's a straightforward question. Do you have evidence that the Russian government did that? That's the basic question. And I don't think that you do.
Well, before you start clutching your pearls, Tucker, the fact is that the FBI and our intelligence agencies say so. That's good enough for me.
Oh, it is. So when the Director of National Intelligence said to the Congress, the NSA is not scooping up email data from every American, Was that good enough for you? Because it turns out he was lying. When the head of the CIA said, no, we did not break into Senate email accounts, was that good enough for you? Because he was lying, too. So maybe as a member of Congress, you should get actual facts before going out on a limb.
Tucker,
on,
you
on
are the only person I know, including most senior Republicans on the Hill, with whom I work and have a lot of respect for, who are so skeptical of our own intelligence agencies. Our own intelligence. No, you can be skeptical, but when all of the intelligence agencies uniformly and unanimously and the FBI tell us that these actions were undertaken by Russian actors.
So don't ask any more questions at that point?
You can ask all you want.
So I'm asking
but
you,
I'm telling you, it's good enough for me.
It's really simple. Have you seen any evidence at all?
I have been in briefings, classified and unclassified, where the conclusions of the intelligence agencies, unanimous conclusions, have been relayed to us, and they are absolutely crystal clear, Tucker, that the Russians did it. Yes, full stop.
That the Russian government, on the basis of what evidence? It's a fair question. You're calling for an independent investigation. You're describing this as collusion between the Trump people and Putin. And I'm just asking you, is there anything at the bottom of this? And you're saying, how dare you be skeptical of the intel agencies?
No, don't put words in my mouth, please. What I said is that when the entire United States intelligence community and the FBI, after months of investigation, give us a unanimous conclusion, I take it seriously, and particularly when it involves, excuse me, when it involves trying to undermine our elections, you should take it seriously too.
And I do, seriously enough to have you on the show. And I'm asking you for the third time, what is it based on? And you're instead impugning me, just as your colleague Schiff did. And I'm just asking you, what is it based on? And you won't give me an answer because you don't know.
No, hold on. No, that's not true. The fact of the matter is that I can't relate to you classified information. But what I can tell you is what has been publicly reported. And if you look at what has been publicly reported, then all of the senior officials in our national intelligence community say that on the basis of their investigative methods, which include lots of things that are sensitive, but that I would prefer not to go into detail about, that is their conclusion. You can't deny that, Tucker. So this sort of notion that we should be so skeptical of our own professionals that we should not allow them to do their job is a mistake.
Skeptical of our own professionals. I must be unpatriotic. Thank you, Congressman.
No, that's fine to be skeptical, but I believe
apparently it's not fine with you. Thanks for joining us.